and reach a consensus, which I don't think is going to be possible. But let's see what you do. What are you saying? What do you think? Has there been, let's take first question, has there been, in your opinion, a collapse in the authoritarian system of 50 years ago in the classroom? How many of you thought there had been? Had been? How many thought there hadn't been? Okay, someone who thought there had been, start to convince the others. What are we going to say to them?
Well, I think there had been, whether it's been taken up, it's been realised and acknowledged.
Well, what hard data can you give me? What can you provide me by way of observation of what's now going on in classrooms, or what did, or what the law says you can do, or what it used to say you can do? Anything that's going to convince me that there is a weakening of that authoritarian system. Well, you're allowed to hurt them, you're just not allowed to hit them. Okay. Okay, depends how skilled you are. You're not allowed to hit them. That's illegal now. So that's one bit of evidence that might suggest that we're worried about this relationship and we've taken away the power to hit children because that was too authoritarian. That might be one piece of hard evidence, yeah?
In a classroom, I'm expected to ask open-ended questions. That's something quite different to many classrooms in the past.
Okay, in a class, yeah, you're meant to elicit their understanding and work with their understanding so that you can manipulate it through constructivist means, yes. So you are meant to find out what their current schemas are and allow them, and there are multiple realities, and they can have that reality and they can have this one and so on. So yeah, okay, so the culture has shifted a bit in pedagogy. In pedagogy, we are more inclusive of their ideas and their voice, I would imagine. Anyone got any other ways you can identify that in practice?
I think there's been a change in our understanding of our duty of care. Say, I've spoken to student examples and mandatory reporting. We have a duty of care for these as for forensic operandi.
Yep.
So that wasn't so, I think, enough years ago.
Okay, so we are more conscious of their rights in a number of areas, including right to be physically safe. Yep. So that would be part of the data sort of you'd pick up on. Anything else?
The social interaction, we expect students to interact with us, but we also expect them to interact with each other and to work collaboratively
Yeah,
and cooperatively with each other.
that's true. We assess them that way, don't we?
Time, you would go in, you would instruct, and that would be, you copy what's on the board without any interaction.
True. You would. So there is certainly greater student voice, both student to student and student to teacher. Yeah, I think that's true. So if you did analysis of who's speaking when in a classroom, you would notice a difference probably. Yeah.
Students question the teacher a lot as to the motives behind anything that you ask them to do, whether it's you have to write the question out before you answer it, or whether it's you need to sit away from that student. You always get that, why?
Yeah, okay, so people are seeking explanations for things that they once would have just accepted. So if you looked at the kind of number of times in a classroom that a teacher demanded that you justify yourself, that kind of incident must be increasing, and that gives some evidence that okay, that's another good one, yeah?
But as an answer to that, we're actually teaching them to challenge their thinking and teaching their thinking skills to always look outside of the norm.
Yeah, we are saying construct your own knowledge. And that's amusing because when you say sit over there because I have decided that you are distracting people, but they've constructed their own knowledge which says no, I'm not. We don't like it anymore. And yet there's a mismatch in a way between, if I wanted to do that, if I was going to get them to construct their own knowledge in management, I'd have to say, what are you doing? What impact is it having? I have to actually explore to see what they're aware of and what their knowledge is. But we don't. We tend to take them over. But you're right. So in pedagogy, we are definitely, I think, especially in the last 15 years, engaging them in a different way. It's less teacher-centred. It's technically more drawing on their understanding, respecting their understanding, getting them to challenge it with data, and so it's more student-centered learning, it's cooperative learning. Yeah, I think that's true. So that's a difference, yeah?
About 30, like just over 30 years ago, I used to get this strap quite often, just down a few portables down the road on Craven Street, Preston.
Yes.
And I do remember the gap between me getting into trouble and getting the strap just did not give me an opportunity to consider what my rights were or what my rights weren't. I was in trouble. And then it would be confirmed by mum and dad finding out, and I'd probably cop a bollocking after that as well.
Yes.
So there was no other third agent or other kind of any other kind of voice which provided an opportunity for me to actually assert any kind of any of my own voice with what actually happened.
Yep, that's right. So there was no student voice, now there is. So much so that actually it's interesting that I had a visiting group of academics from China at La Trobe, I think it was last year, the year before, and they were saying that, and I was just shocked because it was China, that they even have situations where the kid's sent to someone else, sent out of the room to go to the deputy principal, and before the child arrives, there's a phone call from the parent talking about how badly that teacher's just behaved towards her child because the kid had a mobile. And that happens regularly here, I know that. But I didn't expect to hear of it in China, but it was just interesting. So there's that sort of questioning of authority as well. So that's part of the breakdown, I think. It's not just the kid and the authority, it's also parents and the authority. That the parents are questioning your authority and asking you to explain and backing their kids when once they wouldn't. Like I said, once it was double jeopardy, you got into trouble at school, you didn't want anyone to know at home, it was a disaster. Now they'll ring home because you're going to be on their side. So in a way, that's part of that breakdown, I guess. And that would be seen as hard evidence, I think, relevant evidence, yep? Yeah.
I don't think the authoritarian system has collapsed so much as been replaced or supplanted by something that a lot of people have worked very hard at over 30 or 40 years. And as a consequence of that, we've had to engage students more in the whole process so that they do challenge us.
Yes.
And we're teaching them now how to do that appropriately and respectfully within a much broader learning environment.
Yeah, I think that's true. The question really is then, what did you answer for question 3? How many of you said, first of all, before we go any further, because the answer to that question relates to other people's reservations about this discussion, of course. So maybe one of them can tell us why they said, they didn't disagree with anything we've said, they just didn't say that it's collapsed. They said it's something else, I guess. So who wants to speak on behalf of that group?
I can only really speak on behalf of myself. I'm hearing really good things from really great teachers. A really small percentage of the teaching community in the Northern region. But I'm seeing different things in schools with different teachers. I've got a million examples like your one principal saying, sit down in that chair now. When push comes to shove, it's still authoritarian. In my opinion.
Okay. You don't deny that we are teaching children to have a voice in the learning?
No, I don't. I'm
Okay.
hearing things, but it's not happening with every teacher.
No. Okay. And even with some who are, when push comes to shove, they are still likely to say, sit down, I told you to sit, the teacher, I told you to sit down.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so then we've got this sort of problem, haven't we? How do we interpret that eventually? Yeah, go on.
And they reflect you with the shifting values in society. And I think that what you just expressed about sort of your dissatisfaction when that authoritarian approach comes up, that sort of shows that maybe you've got that same shift in values.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's go back to my discussions with my wife. I'm going to give you an explanation for why I do it differently now. When we were married, that was the way things were, and then I looked at this situation and I thought to myself, the power distribution in this relationship is unfair. Already some people are smiling. I have much too much power in this relationship, and